guys, Stephanie Grun here. Welcome to Ventilation Nation and Integra podcast. Our guest today is John Prepotente. I didn't butcher his name. And he is going to talk to us today about fume hood testing. So John, let's start with the basics. What is a fume hood?
A fume hood is a device that is used in the laboratory for containing experiments that could be done in there in the laboratory. And the intent is with the fume hood, as they're doing an experiment, it's going to protect the operator from whatever chemicals are inside the fume hood.
Okay, cool. So let me ask you this. History of fume hood testing. Is there a history? Was there ever a time where we didn't have a standard or regulation?
So back in 1995, ASHRAE came up with the standard. It's the ASHRAE 110.
ASHRAE is an organization?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
that write standards?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And with that, there's a standard that they came up with on testing fume hoods, so that everybody would be testing it the same way, so that the results that come out of it, we can compare them and say, hey, this was done this way, and this is what we're seeing with it. Because back then it was just, hey, measure the phase velocity, make sure it's being contained. So the ASHRAE would have 3 parts to it. Part 1 is the phase velocity, and part 2 is the smoke visualization, and those 2 parts will show exactly what's kind of going on with the fume hood.
Okay.
Qualitatively. Quantitatively, we can do the part 3 test with a tracer gas and a mannequin, and that the mannequin would simulate somebody standing in front of it, where having the air going around them, you'll have a ejector inside the fume hood that would release a tracer gas. And in the breathing zone of the mannequin, you'll be able to detect if any of that tracer gas comes out of the fume hood, and you can say, hey, yay or nay on performance.
Now, I've noticed, so I've worked with some customers, manufacturers, and talked to a lot of folks within the Integra family about fume hood testing and ASHRAE 110, so the tracer gas testing. Not all fume hood manufacturers choose to do that test. Is there a reason why?
A lot of the time, you're supposed to test it at the factory, where they have what they call the as manufactured testing, and they'll select a couple. They'll say, okay, hey, this is your AM testing for the fume hood, and the intent is to show that, hey, within that device, it's working the way it's supposed to. The next test after that was what they call the as installed. And then with that one there, all the balancing has been completed, and the fume hood is installed where it's going to be used, but not just used at that moment.
Okay.
So it's the test to make sure that the as installed, everything's working the way it's supposed to, because there could be cross drafts or anything with the ventilation
system. But a lot of people seem to choose not to do that.
So usually for the as installed, it would be tested as a part of that.
Okay.
And so as you can prove that with the tracer gas testing, hey, or all 3 parts, everything's working the way it's supposed to. So what happens then after that, the annual testing will be just parts 1 and 2. And it's really a should be tested kind of thing. So this way you can confirm that the way it's being used and installed where it's at, it's going to provide operator safety.
So it's a should be, not a shall. So it's not a requirement, but it's a should be. How do we get people to understand the importance of what we're doing and the need for them to go through this testing?
So a lot of the times, what it does is with the testing, it'll prove that everything's working the way it's supposed to, and that with the HVAC system working the way it's supposed to, you can kind of eliminate that the performance of the fume hood is set up that it will protect the operator when everything's working the way it's supposed to.
Okay.
And so what you're going to look at then at that point is if something were to go wrong, then you can have documentation that proves that, hey, everything is working the way it was supposed to.
Okay.
And that it wasn't the mechanical equipment that was failing.
Okay. So when is testing required?
Testing is usually required at the very beginning when the fume hood is first installed, because you'll be able to do all 3 parts and say, hey, everything's working the way it's supposed to, and you can prove it at that point. So then after that, you'll want to do the as used, so that this way, whatever equipment that they put into the fume hoods, it's working the way it's supposed to. Because a lot of times they'll put so much stuff inside the fume hood, it could disrupt airflow. With the annual testing, you'd be able to prove if that airflow is working the way it's
supposed to. So we do initial testing when the fume hood is installed, and then we do the annual certification after it's already been installed. And we just continue to do that through the life cycle of a fume hood.
Of a fume hood. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So is there anything we can do to help prepare our customers for testing? Any tips or tricks to get them prepared?
So a lot of the times is, especially if we're certifying it on the annual basis, that whatever chemicals that they were using in there, we kind of want them to put it away. So this way we're not exposed to it. Because there are a lot of times when we're doing some of the testing, we got to get in there and all that. And so to minimize any mishaps, we would want the customer to remove whatever chemicals that they're using in there, protect us from that side.
Okay. And that, but for the most part, they just take the fume hood from a manufacturer, they install it. We go in and just test for the velocity and the, what did you say, smoke?
The smoke visualization.
Smoke visualization. Yeah. Okay. And then they're just good to go. So it's a pretty simple process.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty simple process. So how did you get into this field? I know John's been with Newdorf for about 33 years. Did you have a career before tab or commissioning or fume hood?
Pretty much started balancing right out of high school.
Okay. And I've seen so many people have said that. I mean, I was doing a podcast with Bill Newdorfer yesterday, and he only thing he's ever known, except for I think he said delivering newspapers or maybe scooping ice cream or something. But yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. Once you enter the field, you just stick with it.
Yeah. And it was fun because Bill made it that way. It's a challenge to do a lot of the jobs, and so yeah, I started back in '91. Mm-hmm. So at about 1996, we started doing clean rooms.
Okay.
And in the clean rooms are pretty much a laboratory. So in a lot of the laboratories, you'll see fume hoods in there. Mm-hmm. And Bill was thinking, hey, you know what? Since we're already doing clean rooms, that's something else that we can get into. Mm-hmm. And so the intent then is hey, we could be able to certify fume hoods. So I kind of got into it at that point and started working with Bill.
So you're like the niche specialty services guy.
Yeah.
So very fortunate to have you as part of our clan.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So any crazy, memorable stories you could share of your 33 years in the industry?
I do have one.
Just one? One memorable.
One memorable because it was something that happened. So we were working in a building in downtown Seattle, and one of the ducts going to an air handling unit had imploded. You can hear it.
Oh, wow.
And that was very memorable because it's like, thank God we were close by. But good, fortunately, it was an implosion versus an explosion because that would send material everywhere.
Right.
Versus an implosion. Something happened with the controls and the unit was running.
So nobody was hurt?
Nobody was hurt, fortunately. Mm-hmm. But, and I think it's because it was an implosion versus an explosion.
Yeah, John's easy to get jumpy. I poke him every now and then, and he starts jumping. So I could see where an implosion would make you jumpy. So, well, listen, this was a wonderful podcast. It's so nice having you as part of our team here, John. And I think if you need some fume hood testing, call this guy.
I'm your man.
He's your man. So thank you so much for everyone for tuning in and listening to our podcast today. Have a great day and peace out.
Peace out.